Private investigators do a lot of surveillance every single day. They do surveillance in child custody cases. They do surveillance in insurance fraud cases. They do surveillance for cheating spouse investigations and many other areas of investigation. And one thing that I can guarantee you about surveillance is that private investigators will lose their subjects while doing mobile surveillance. It is just inevitable. It's going to happen. But there are steps a PI can take to help ensure they do not lose their subject during surveillance, and we will cover the top 10 tricks they use to help make their surveillance more successful. The first thing is to always remember no two surveillances are ever the same. Even if you are doing surveillance on a subject that you have surveilled before, there will be differences. Obviously, if you conduct surveillance on a subject more than once, you will start to see some patterns, gather new intel, and have some new information you can use the next time you go out. But even those observations and patterns that you identify are not guaranteed to be the same. Treat each day of surveillance as if it is a brand new case and use the intel you have to help you be prepared, but do not assume the subject will always do the same things. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. Next thing is to ensure that you know your intel, but don't rely solely on your intel. Intelligence is the information that you have prior to going out on your surveillance. Things like the subject's vehicle description, known habits, driving patterns, things like that. It is very important that you know all that you can about your subject and their residence, their vehicles, and other things, but don't rely solely on that intel. Remember, when you arrive on scene, nothing may be as you thought it would be, and things may change rapidly as the case goes on. I had one case in a very rural town where the subject left his house and was followed for about an hour where he went to a farm, and then he left that farm driving a totally different vehicle and continued down the road in the same direction he was going prior. I tell you what, at first this seemed very suspicious. I started to wonder if he had taken notice of me while following him. Later, though, I found out that the second vehicle was his vehicle and the farm belonged to a brother, and he stored vehicles at the farm and swapped them out as needed. He had taken a truck from the farm and went and purchased some lumber at a store in a nearby city, then took it back to his house. After seeing this, it all made perfectly good sense, but if I had relied solely on waiting for that one car to leave, relying solely on the intel I had, I would have never seen that he was in the pickup when it left. Another trick is to make sure you are ready to throw your plan out the window. No doubt about it, you need to go in with a plan on how you will work the case, but many times the circumstances that arise during the surveillance make the plans obsolete. Every investigation takes on a life of its own once it starts, so be ready to write plans B, C, and D on the fly as needed in every case. You also need to know the neighborhood prior to going out on surveillance. You need to know where possible places you can park for stationary surveillance are located. You need to know what is the most likely route the subject will take when they leave. I always try to set up some distance away, maybe 4 to 5 houses from the subject residence and along the most likely exit route. Now, when I started doing surveillance, I was much more aggressive than I am today. I always parked where I could clearly see the residence, sometimes directly across the street. However, this can create many issues when you have to go on mobile surveillance. First, if you can plainly see the residence, the subject can plainly see you when they leave. Second, if you are too close, you are more likely to get made or be seen by the subject when they first leave the neighborhood, as you will almost always have to start the follow at nearly the exact same time they go mobile. Your subject is also more likely to know their immediate neighbors much better than the people down the block and will recognize unfamiliar cars. And if a neighbor or the police approach you and talk to you, well, the closer you are, the more likely it will be noticed by your subject. Next, you need to ensure that you know all avenues of departure from the neighborhood. Get on Google and look over the neighborhood very carefully. Where are the major arterial streets and what streets, alleys, and roads lead to them? Where are the major shopping and business districts and how might the subject get to them? I usually go out earlier than the scheduled start time or go out the previous day if it is close by to observe neighborhood activity firsthand. Watch and see what direction the neighbors go when they leave. Remember, what your GPS tells you is the most route to a location is not always the route everyone takes that lives there. Remember, intel is good, but not to be relied on 100% of the time. Google provides intel, not guarantees. I have had many cases where I went to a residence by the route my GPS told me to go, only to see everyone in the neighborhood leave a totally different way. After following the subject, it made sense. But if you don't know, well, you don't know. And it may seem like your subject is driving some weird circuitous route through the neighborhoods to shake a tail. Highways versus city streets is a good thing to keep in mind also. I live in a mid-sized city where most of us stick to the main city arterial roads, but GPS always tries to get you on the highways. If you followed me to the grocery store, I might take 6 streets to drive 3 miles, and I could have taken 2 highways and got there quicker, but I, like most people here, choose to take local streets. Here is a tip that will surely get the blood a-boiling with some PIs out there. Always sit in the front seat. I know, everyone teaches us to sit in the back seat, and sometimes I still do sit in the back seat if circumstances dictate it. But trying to hop up front, start your car, pull down any window coverings, and take off during a stakeout is a recipe for losing your subject, or worse, a recipe to ensure you drive unsafe. Safety must always be your #1 priority, folks. Now, I know there are some folks out there that are probably much more skilled at it than I am and in better physical shape. But for me, I always sit in the front seat when possible. We, as professional investigators, have a higher level of standards we are held to, which require us to maintain safety while out there on surveillance. You know what you are doing. No one else does. And your PI license is not a license to be careless. It's a license for a professional. And it is really easy to stay covert and hidden in the front seat too. I use black foam core cutouts that I pop into my side windows called blackouts, a sunscreen in my front window, and a black cloth that I hang from a clothes rod in my back seat, and I am completely hidden inside my car. Now, while doing surveillance, you need to also make sure you don't let your brain get the best of you. It's hard sitting out there freezing your brain, boiling your brain, sometimes both in the same day. You see and hear everything. You see and hear everybody. You see and hear all the activity around you. It is easy for the mind to start getting paranoid and think everyone is watching you. Everyone knows you're there. Don't let your mind wander and take control and make you paranoid. When you're on mobile surveillance and your subject suddenly makes a U-turn or goes into a weird neighborhood, remember, it is usually for a reason. It does not always mean that they are suspicious. Sometimes they're just lost, or they missed a turn, or they're on the phone. It's easy, though, to let your mind convince you that you're burned. Just relax, breathe, pull back slightly if needed, but not so much that you lose them. Think about the other reasons they may have done what they just did. Maybe they were going to get a cup of coffee. Then they realized they didn't have time. They might have thought they forgot something at home, then they found it in the car. I had a case where a guy left his house, pulled into the driveway for a McDonald's one morning, went towards the drive-thru, then suddenly went around the building back towards a ranch supply store. I thought, okay, he just took a shortcut there. He got to the end of that parking area, flipped a U, and drove past me and the other investigator that was working with me. It would have been very easy to assume we were burned at that point, but we got turned around and we caught back up to him. Then he drove backcountry roads into the nearest city, drove clear across the city. Then he went to a car wash, washed and cleaned out his pickup truck, then went to a parking lot by a Starbucks, and sat there inside his car waiting for 30 minutes. Then he went to a nearby restaurant with another man. Then he left and went all the way back home. Back home, 20 miles away. Then we saw the other man arrive at his house with another truck. It turned out that his truck was a company truck and the other guy was swapping trucks with him. When I left for the day, I drove by the farm supply store where he flipped a sudden U, and lo and behold, there was a car wash. And you know what? The car wash was out of order. Once we knew all the facts, it all made sense. But had we let our minds get in the way, we would have lost him and never knew that he traded vehicles, which was new intel for the next day's surveillance. Now, when I started doing surveillance back in 2008, I often tried to keep 1 or 2 vehicles, between myself and the subject while on mobile surveillance. Over time, though, I found that I was losing my subjects more times than not. Since then, I have learned to stay close to my subject, not bumper to bumper close, but close enough that I don't get caught at a red light if they go through a yellow light. I will also leave some distance between us in between stoplights if the lights are a good distance apart, but then I close the gap as we get closer. This works well in most cases, but if they are speed demons gunning it after every green light and you let too much space get between you and your subject, you will have to go even faster to catch up, which could lead to a more dangerous situation. Which leads to my next tip, which is to hang on while on the follow. Get to the first place they are going. It always seems like after you get to the first place they go, everything goes smoother after that. If they haven't made you by then, there is little chance they will figure it out. From my experience, most people will go to 1 to 3 places, then back home. Making it to the first stop is one step closer to getting back to the residence, and you have more intel about them and their driving habits. Pay attention to their driving habits. Do they use turn signals? Do they signal suddenly or long distances? Do they brake quickly? Do they drive erratic or fast? Are there notable things about the rear of their vehicle, like the shape of their brake lights, bumper or window stickers, tail lights, anything that makes them stand out? Look for anything to help you in future follows. You can gain a lot of intel on that first leg of the tail. And when they are heading back in the direction of their residence, ease up on the follow. If they went and got a ton of groceries, they probably are not going to be driving all over town with the groceries in their car. They will want to get home, so you can ease up a little. During this time, run through your mind potential places that you can park when you get to the residence where you can safely get video without the subject seeing you. Down the street a bit, under a shady tree, someplace with good cover and where you can see. This will allow you to get some video as they unload their groceries, which is very important if it is a personal injury or workers' comp case that you're working. My biggest tip of all is to learn from your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. I still make mistakes today, but you don't have to relive them out in your mind. Just learn from them. I don't care how long you've been doing this, you are going to make mistakes. Or more appropriately, you will always find opportunities to learn better ways to doing things. When I started doing surveillance, I knew nothing. Literally, all I knew was what I had seen on TV or read in a book, but I knew nothing about the real world of surveillance. Over many years, I have had a lot of opportunities to learn new ways to do things, and I always look at my mistakes as new learning opportunities.